welcome everyone. I see the small faces with more glasses, and Eve, welcome. So honored to see you here also. And I would love to start with an invitation to take a look in the virtual room. Who do you see? Maybe some familiar faces for you too. And some of just names. There are even 2 pages, so you need to go to the other page to see everyone, at least the names. And I'm also excited for many reasons and looking very much forward for the 90 minutes plus with all of you. I will invite you for presenting in a second. Then I have some questions if you would like to reflect on this topic for the beginning. And the topic I would maybe add to Nicola is about the climate coaching, but even more about the ecology of human beings. And I will also introduce myself and why am I working with these topics. And then I will give you an overview about my research and experience so far. And then you are in. So this process is for all of us, as it is named dialogue. So it's not a discussion, but much more something what as coaches, I think we can really go explore, let things emerge and be explorative about what could be in the room. For the beginning, about me, maybe a little introduction. I'm Polish, but I live in Germany for more than 20 years, and I'm a lawyer. So people ask, why are you working with climate coaching or environmental mediation when you're a lawyer? And my practice as a lawyer showed me very quickly, years ago, that the best methods and knowledge doesn't help if people argue at the communication level or because of our values, because of our identities. So looking for efficacy, I went for mediation and found coaching, all of this stuff we are doing, many of us here. And with the time, I realized that many of these conflicts happen because the way of how we treat each other is not so what I name ecological as it could be. So I started the research about the ecology of human beings like 8 years ago, working with different groups in which we were focusing on sustainability in companies, but mostly looking for water, energy, stuff which we can have in our hands. And years later, I realized, oh, climate change is becoming more and more urgent. So how do I deal with this professional non-attachment attitude in a coaching session, but then also with what we observe in our world, and what was very important for me personally. And this is how I came to Climate Coaching Alliance, which is represented here, and got a lot of help to understand what's going on and how we can be supportive. But also realized, and this is something which I would love to start with, I'm not here to convince anyone to anything. It's just my experience and my perspective, my narrative, so to say. And you're kindly invited to have a dialogue about this, because we are plenty and have plenty narratives, I hope so. So this is about me very shortly. And I would love to have an idea, who are you? And this is, having, I don't know how many we are, 46 now. It's a little bit difficult to have an introduction. So I would like you to, have a kind of post-it or something you have, an object which will allow you to close the camera if I ask you a question and you will say no to the question. So if you can say yes, you just please open the camera, let the camera open. And if you will say no, just close the camera, okay? It would be great if you can have camera on for this short exercise, or my orientation and orientation for everyone here. So the first question will be, who in this virtual room is in Europe? And UK is included for me, if it's okay. And everyone who is not in Europe, please close the camera. Okay. I look for the second page. Okay, so a couple of Europeans. Who in the room is in Asia? Okay. Thank you so much. And who of you is in North America? I'm not, so I close again. Someone from North America? Pascal? Anne? Okay, no. Okay. South America. Anyone? Oh, okay. Just a couple of more questions. Africa is there? Carlos? Okay. And I'm so sorry, but who in the room is younger than 25? I'm not, so. Mary. Okay. And older than 65. Okay. This is so important to know. Just one more question too. Who in the room is speaking English as a native speaker? Okay. And I have learned English as the fourth language, what you can hear. So please bear with me and with my pronunciation. Anyone else who have like a couple of languages and English is like the third or the fourth one? Okay. This is so important to know. Thank you so much. So this was the outer focus I wanted to invite you to. And now I would love to ask you to, if it's fine with you, to close your eyes or just find a good position with open eyes, but taking a look like more to the floor. And we will go for a couple of minutes of presencing as we are in the middle of the day and probably with many sessions around. And just sense your breath. Maybe you can perceive if your breath is more vivid in your belly or chest or in your face, around your nose. And just observe, how is your breath right now? And probably you already know, or you can realize now, that even if we only observe, we are having an impact on what is happening. So there's a small shift. For some of us, the breath is going slower, deeper. For some others, even quicker. And if you could imagine, if you stay or sit, it's what's best for you, what is best for you, that your legs become a kind of roots, as if you would be a tree. And please just imagine that they are like growing and growing, and you get connected, you're like with the earth. You're almost getting to the center of the earth, like a big, big tree, or at least connected. Your roots are intertwined with the ecosystem. And just enjoy the connection. And then please come back to the middle of your body. And if you want, you can also stretch your hands, or just imagine you stretch them and take a look, a kind of up to you, as you would like to touch the roof, the heaven, as you would look to the sunshine from the perspective of a tree. And also enjoy this connection. And then please come back to your body and imagine that in your back, all members of your family who were there before, and they are like thousands if we think for a long, long time. It's not just our parents and our grandparents, but many, many generations which were there before you were able and invited to come here, to be in this place. And imagine leaning on this power, the history, maybe a kind of stability behind you. And enjoy. And I'm aware of, some of the familiar relationships, they're not so easy. But when we take a broader look, it's also powerful. And then please come back to the middle and take a look into the front, what's before you, as if you would, take a look on a path, something in the future. I know that for some of us, time is much more circulated than a line. So take the best version for you now. Take a look maybe to a child, a grandchild, a neighborhood, someone from the neighborhood, someone who's in the future. It can be also another being. It doesn't need to be human. And also feel this connection. And there's nothing you have to do or, change. Just sensing what's emerging for you. And how interconnected and intertwined we are. And then I invite you to take another deep breath, and we'll ask you a couple of questions, which you can answer for you, on a piece of paper, or in a chat if you wish, or dancing, or doing whatever with your body you wish. Okay. And the first question is, where do you see yourself in the world today? We have the 14th of December, 2023. Where do you see yourself today? And what is it you care about these days? Mm. And if we take your place or time and what you care about, what is your intention for the time together in this session? What brought you here? Are they anyhow connected? So what is it you would like to have happen in this session, and how could you co-create this happening? Thank you so much for your sharing in the chat. And the last one, when you think of the last year, like in many countries it is happening, that December is the time of reflection. What are you grateful for the last couple of months? Oh, Mary, amazing. I'm jealous now. I know I shouldn't, but you can swim. And we move between -7 degrees and plus something. Thank you so much. Okay. So maybe one more minute, and then I hope to include all of your wishes and intentions. I'm really glad to see the listening, the openness, the community partnering. Yeah. And I'm shift a little bit in the next 20-25 minutes in a mode of presenting something. And also I am, very often in a situation that when we do it by Zoom, we are disconnected. I do have the other computer where I see all your faces. And on this computer, I will share my presentation. So I need to connect with you in this double sense. And hope you can enjoy this one. And if you have any questions of understanding, please just put them into the chat and we will collect them later on. I will make you this way. Okay. So this is my idea for today. We are now in the step 2, I will present you an overview about the topic, then we will have this clarifying questions and then dialogue in plenum. Ideally along the idea of what, so what, now what, and some time for networking. And as I have mentioned before, I'm really grateful and would love to appreciate the many, many works which are done in the books, which I will also mention around climate coaching and coming from Climate Coaching Alliance, but also the guideline which came last week for reflection for EMCC members. And I know there is a discussion around this one. So once more, for me, it is very important to make clear it's up to ourselves all the time to realize what is important and what is our role. And maybe we can also reflect on the previous definitions of our identities and take a look to the core and to the flex parts of identities. So this is what we can also maybe do later here. And for me, as I have mentioned, you're the engine of the process and I need your presence. So ideally, it helps if we just have one medium and avoid this kind of digitized eye where we are on media and on LinkedIn, whatever. It's up to you. It's just an invitation to be really present here. And I have 3 key ideas ahead for the session. So for me, polycrisis, complexity, and time pressure allow us to be most effective within the microstructures, which mean our places where we are working and living with clients, but also in communities. However, we need to understand, or it is helpful to understand, what impact does the macro level has on all of us. So this is what I'm exploring and trying to understand to make the microstructure even more sustainable, right? So we will focus here on the next possible step towards connection and equity, especially in the stage of dialogue. For me, in this room, we are all in a kind of mutual responsibility from a philosophical approach. So it doesn't mean that we patronize each other. It does mean that every human being has the responsibility for other beings. And I just named some authors who relate about this a lot. And this, especially as we as social beings long to cooperate first. And there is also a lot of evidence about that. What is important or helpful for the kindness and mindful exchange here is to recognize heuristics and cognitive dissonance, which is normal and at the same time not so helpful if we will explore something. What does it mean? It means that we perceive the world as we are, not as it is. And if we are overwhelmed by many changes and many different ideas about something, which are very different to what we believe in, we tend to avoid this dissonance and look for rationalizations and sometimes escalate. So this is something what I just, as a mediator, love to keep in mind, that this is a procedure which happens in group dynamics. Having said this, just let's stay curious and explorative, which is also a kind of pedagogic wish, right? Here are some books which you maybe know, maybe not, which I refer to, not all of them. Oh, I mean, not all of the books I refer to are here, but I think it's really nice to have an orientation how much it was written already or is written about the topic I am talking about today. And the ecology of human being and the understanding of this one is can be explained from many different edges, so to say. And I love to use the four of them. So the one is very much connected with the language. So looking from the etymological approach, we can understand ecology of human being as household theory, while colloquially we think about careful attitude and action with environmental resources, while it is also a scientific sub-discipline of biology that investigates the relationships between living things and the inanimate environment, right? And what is most important for us, or I think most interesting for us today, is the ecology related to people, which means our balanced and balancing approach to ourselves and our environment, conscious about our earthly and material dependencies, right? So thinking of this balance and balancing approach, we can ask ourselves, how do we perceive ourselves and you yourself being ecological with and to yourself and other beings? And I was giving a workshop about the ecology of human beings in Austria a couple of years ago. And I have found this picture, which is about a marathon for children. And it caused a lot of discussion about how do we treat each other when it comes to competition and to individualistic approach, maybe. And I wanted just to show it to you and maybe invite you to sense what do you perceive when you see this picture? What do you feel? What are your thoughts about this? And we can maybe gather them later on, okay? For me, it is important to understand what does frame our and other beings' ecology in our lives today. And I just name very shortly the different tendencies and narratives of overburdening, sensitivity, attribution of self-responsibility, which is so important for us as coaches and mentors and supervisors, but also exceptionalism. And the main question here is, how do we as coaches, mentors and supervisors, and how do our clients and their organizations deal with all of these narratives, but also with change, with uncertainty, with acceleration and anxiety? And answering these questions, what does it mean for us? How would we like to show up? But also, how do we feel? How do we deal even with all these phenomena? And as I started to explain the bigger picture, so to say, to my students, for instance, in social work, I wanted to make them more aware, and this is why I shared also with you, that although we are working very often at the small triangle with our clients, we always have the impact in the room of the universe, the geopolitical position as today, 2023 in the world, especially. So what I can refer to is what's going on in Europe, what impact does or do the wars have on us here and in our work? And how is the world today? In which continent we are? How is the legal framework and the political framework in which we were born and are now? So as I'm coming from a communistic one and appreciating democratic one, it does make a difference in our perception, in our values, in our language even. So also the state, the languages and the customs are very important. And they have always a kind of more or less conscious impact on how our clients are dealing and coping with certain events in our lives, right? And this is coming from the cultural sciences. This small triangle is referring to our biology, which is also connected very much with what is going on in today, maybe chemistry industry, for instance, what is going on in our food, how our hormones are impacted, then to the microculture in our families, in our schools, in our organizations, and to the personal one, which is also very complex. So this model is very simplified, and this is much more messy than it is shown here. And if we only would add timeline, we could recognize the messiness we face also in our coachings. And another approach to explain what is happening in the world is probably known for the most of you, the acronym VUCA, and since the pandemic, BANI. VUCA was about the vulnerable, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous place. And today we are talking much more about brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible place of being. And sometimes, we wonder because we will say, okay, it was always complex, it was always ambiguous and uncertain. So what is different now? And for me, it is the dimension of insecurity, incomprehensibility, and especially when we take a look to our clients, but also to ourselves, maybe the anxiety, which is observable in many circles. So having the land map, the influences, the different factors, then we have the idea of BANI in the world. And in addition to them, we can include what future scientists offer to us, which are, for instance, megatrends, which are slow and long-term fundamental structural changes in organizational system that are appearing global in all sectors of society and economy. So whatever we are, we all observe interconnectivity. We understand more and more that our decisions here make a difference somewhere else. We are globalized, right? We are, especially in the coaching, in the field of coaching, very often facing individualization and the consequences of this. When I look to Europe, we are very old society. The average age of Europeans is 43. So this is the silver society. So it has also an impact on our work. And summarizing, we can observe that we more and more are working in international teams located in different places in the world. They are very, very often multilingual. Some of them work agile or are managed in traditional way or mixed, which is really interesting to coach them. And they are fluctuating a lot in the employee market, especially when it comes to the intergenerational perspective. And what is important for our topic and for the ecology of human beings is the competition. So when we think of the very natural idea of cooperation, and then the frame we have today, the narrative of competition with various groups. And the competition, it's not happening, maybe even between coaches and supervisors, like in the city where you are or in the village which you are, but it's global, right? So it has completely different dimension than even a decade ago. So following to all of this, many times people are overwhelmed even by the acceleration, by quick changes we have, and by the variety also. So I'm a cross-cultural trainer, or I was for many, many years, and I really love diversity. And at the same time, I observe that we underestimate the effort which needs to be put in a good cooperation of diverse teams. So we are sometimes more and more overwhelmed by this many changes and variety we get. And at the same time, we are looking for meaningful work and sustainable environments and organizations. And one could say, we're just looking for Ubuntu, right? I am because you are, feeling the connection. So it seems to be a kind of contradiction sometimes, what we are doing and what we are looking for. So this is my observation. And I need to add just one another layer to that, and this is the climate change. So as you can see, we have many, many layers which have an impact on our being, on our ecology, or on our well-being today. And then we have the climate change. And I would like to use just an example to make more practical what is happening. How does it has an impact on our work? When we think about people working in global cities and take a look to the megatrend urbanizations, which means that more and more people move to the cities, those, especially when we work with political bodies and with companies, they deal with a huge challenge or many challenges around energy, nutrition, infrastructure, human population, right? So coaching here means, on the one side, an invitation for individuals and organizations, but also for politicians and entrepreneurship to reconnect with ourselves and other beings, to understand the contradictions I have mentioned before, and to become aware of our feebleness and to rethink our strategies, to understand the geophysical force and to develop a planetary understanding. And it doesn't mean this is something I need to bring to every single coaching. It does mean that if I will support my clients in a sustainable and qualified process, it makes sense for me as Katarzyna to understand what is the bigger picture behind, right? So we need to recognize all above in order to develop mental and emotional toughness and to support the idea of safety, which we talk so often as coaches. We talk about psychological safety. And I would like to widen the idea to an idea of safety, which recognizes that it's not just the mental health, but it's also our education, our digitalization, employment, the security for the future, research, urban development, environment, and climate. So sorry. And if someone in the room likes to go for facts, there's around climate change and the impact on that. There's a beautiful work in Potsdam. So Nicola, you can visit also them. And they show to us in different world regions how the climate change has an impact on sectors like agriculture, forestry, tourism, and health. And when we think on health, I would love to recommend the Lancet report. And just very shortly here, the understanding how climate change has an impact on our health. And it's very often, as at least in my coaching room, the case that people suffer already because of some aspects of this, right? So altogether, we can observe that the impact on our health and relationship and lives, it's different today is very complex, it's very messy, and a lot of people are struggling. It doesn't mean it's everything negative. There's a lot of positive things are happening, but it's just to understand that these structural and systemic approaches are important when we talk with our clients or listen to them and ask them questions which are related to the system and to the context in which they are. And there's also the critique from sociology around the narrative of overloading and overburdening on the excessive demand on people and social fabric. So the critique is also that we live in a culture of emergencies, fear, and intervention. And I agree to a certain extent with all these critiques, especially when it comes to resilience as the solution about something, while we don't change the reasons for which are causing many of the suffering. And there's also solastalgia. So for those of you who don't know this idea, it formulates the sentiment of experiencing the absence of a connection to a healthy land. And the supposition of solastalgia is that our physical and psychological health has a deep connection with the health of the environment we live in. And to be honest with you, I'm very much there, and very often. And this is something which I observe in many different generations and groups of people, the pain around what's going on. So I would love to close this part about the ecology, the very short overview about the ecology, with the quote from Charlie Chaplin, who said, "We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost." So, and this is where we are asked as climate coaches, as we are able to listen in a kind and mindful way from my perspective. And what do I understand as climate coaching? And if I have the book of you and the other book of Charlie and many others on my table, so this is very much the understanding for me now. This is a partnership-based assistance in order to explore, create, and implement a climate-friendly strategy. And in this sense, it's very transparent service for organizations and companies, governments and communities, teams and individuals, which are eager to be a part of the solution when it comes to the climate change in every dimension of environmental, social, and governance, right? And this is always connected with an eco-contracting. So it's not nothing I just bring to the table or just have on my agenda. I'm asked for support in this particular question. At the same time, climate coaching can be, in my sense, in my view, or its content can be understood and helpful as an invitation to rethink the own attitude, the professional and the social position, and to consider the own handprint on an earth. Handprint means I'm doing something positive, rather footprint where I'm avoiding the bad. So this is just another focus. So thinking on the future generations who can then live and survive in a dignified way, right? And it can also be understood as an invitation to explore with our clients when we perceive the signs of lost balance, right? So maybe similarly to a conflict, when I have conflict coaching or mediation, I need to understand the system, even if the coaches or clients, medians, then don't talk about conflict as such. So I see it as my responsibility to understand what's going on, to ask the questions which are helpful for them, for their systems, right? So in my humble opinion, we all can raise awareness around sustainable lifestyle for all beings. We can develop sustainable leadership, whatever it means for us. An attitude and structures in which we can think and speak critically once we have clarified our roles and are free of attachment. And I am thinking this is crucial, and this is not just one step lection. It's like I observe myself in every single session. Once again, I'm taking a look how free, how observant am I in this procedure, and where am I trying to bring something into the space. Or where can I laugh about it, and just, you know, being transparent that I have an idea for the client, but then put it on the table and leave it. Okay. So as coaches, mentors, supervisors, and mediators, we are co-creating safe space, from my perspective, in which transitions, growth, and grief are possible. And there's a lot of pain about what's going on. So rather we avoid this topic because we're not clear about this one. I invite all of us to just think of that and reflect, how am I with this topic? How would I like to offer spaces and be an instrument for our clients? So we are also often asked to challenge the clients and the client systems while recognizing ethical standards and join global statements of coaching associations. And the other aspect of this topic is that we can use our competencies as citizens, as partners or parents who don't need to be coaches in the narrow sense of being a coach, but just supporting something like positive institutions who create new things flexibly and with the strength of the community in a regenerative and cooperative manner, and just need someone who is able to create good space for changes and growth. Okay. So what could be helpful to recognize the ecology in ourselves and in others and to find our relationship? From my perspective, it is really important to understand the impacts, all the factors we have in our daily life, and to take a closer look to how we can create mindful and kind space for everyone. And what we can almost always offer is deep listening, empathy, and a framework in which we can think for ourselves using thinking environment or many other methods we know. And there is a lot of materials on Climate Coaching Alliance in the books I have mentioned. And there are just a couple of ideas I have brought for you before you are asked to have your ideas and dialogue. So what I really like is the idea of Linda Aspe about the working with the earth in mind, but also the works around recognizing the digitalized eye, because a lot of lacking of the ecology of human being is observed in the connection with the digitalization, especially when we think with our younger clients, but not only, or students. And the understanding of the power of belonging is also so important. There are belonging design principles which make quite clear that a lot of suffering is happening because of separation and othering. So there's the invitation to belong with our diversity, which we have, right? Another beautiful model is coming from Joanna Macy, Active Hope, which is useful for our own reflection as touching peer coaching in families. And also using art, writing poems, and, you know, whatever suits you, listening to podcasts, which are really bringing a lot of hope. So this is, in a very short way, what I observed as helpful, and especially summarizing all of this to make these topics speakable, to make room for them, and also room for pain if any pain is there, or even anger, right? Anger is also important. We can use anger in a positive way. So this is what I wanted to share with you. And I would love you now to explore a little bit more in breakout sessions. Thank you so much for coming back, Nicola, and everyone. So I'm aware of the complexity of the overview, and I love complexity. And it's really difficult sometimes to make a balanced way to make it easier. And by the end of the day, it will be easier, because we go back to the microstructure and to what could be recognized and new in our own microcosmos also. So I would love to hear from you what has emerged so far. What are your thoughts, maybe questions, invitations, whoever would like to share. And we have many climate coaches here in the room, so I'm not the only one. Let's go to topic.
So I was speaking to two guys in my group. Very quickly, I just wanted to say the very crux of what I was speaking about with them was, I was at a conference last year and the lady was saying about we have to look at who's in the room when we're talking about climate change or some subject. And I says, yeah, that's important, but actually there's something much more important. She said, well, I says, it's not about who is in the room, it's about who is not in the room. And my connection to that was when we're talking about climate change and carbon and the solutions and everything, if we are just talking amongst ourselves in our group of 42 people or thousands of people in the UK, wherever, who is not in the conversation, that is probably got another perspective on it, that is probably overlooked because there is this consensus on climate change. Is it the case that all 7.2 billion people are thinking exactly the same thing? Or maybe are there some people in Africa, in India and South America actually saying, we have got a different way of thinking about this, but has anyone actually ever asked us? That's what I want to say. Thank you.
May I ask you something?
Yes.
Sajar or Sagar?
Sagar.
Sagar. Thank you
Yes.
so much. So I'm assuming that we have 7.5 million different opinions and thinkings.
Something like that. Yes.
This is clear. And I was wondering, listening to you, who would you like to invite into a conversation?
I would say is probably going to be the indigenous people. Not cherry picked for showcasing or trophies, but actually invite the indigenous people from the forests, from the mines, the women from those countries. It could be mostly from the global south, maybe some from the northern countries as well, the global north. But actually, in my opinion, those are the people that should be not on the fringe, but they should be front and center. And it's not just black and brown, but obviously there should be white as well. But in most conversations, there should be a very versatile mix, diversity.
Yeah. So as we are coaches, if I may, another question. So if I would ask all of us, including myself, what it could be, what you're doing in the next 24 hours or 84 hours. So would it be a real invitation you could speak out to someone to just have this conversation?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have a WhatsApp Zoom with a lady from Peru next week.
Great.
Because most of the people I'm getting the knowledge from are from the global south.
Yeah.
And it's a white woman from Peru, is a black guy from Africa. But in climate change conversations or groups where I've been for the last 10 years, the global south is barely 1% of the room. And in my opinion, that's a lost opportunity to actually get a different perspective from 3,000 miles away on the other side of the world.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And even what I hear, even if we observe that we have more and more people from many different places, that seems still not to be enough, and there are particular conversations. So what I know very much when I have diversity, equity, inclusion in academia workshops, and I'm sitting with 20 professors who are more all male and all white, and we are talking about inclusion of it's like a really big field to make change happen. If I see that it's something you could share, do I see it correctly about the particular topic from Sagar?
No, honestly, I'd just say it's a point really well made. I think Stu put that in the chat box as well. And yeah, I think, I won't say any more than that.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other conclusions, insights, ideas, questions from your breakout sessions?
What are the next steps for you yourself, Katarzyna? I know you are so deep in the research here, and you are so embroiled in the complexity. I'm really interested to discover what guides your thinking about which particular lobe of research to have a look at next, or to bring ideas into. I was interested in where you are on your own journey and what your immediate next steps are. And whether, and also, sorry, lots of questions in one. And also whether there's any questions that you have that the hive mind here in the room can really help with.
Yeah. May I start with the second one? I think, so maybe the question I have talked to Nicola as you were in the breakout session about the Balance Act, and maybe challenge to share what is, from my perspective, so important to understand what is going on, the complexity, and at the same time, not to make people think it's difficult, it's too big, it's too much. And this kind of translation, this is something what I said, it's much easier if we are in one room, because I am using my body, going to everyone and can check in and just make it less bold and less difficult. So it would be maybe a question to you. What would be possible from your perspective to make it more tangible and accessible, but not to simplify it? So this is my worry very often, that we simplify so much. And from my perspective, I simplified already a lot, but it is still a lot, right? So how to find the place where we can meet with what is needed? And I think, I see an answer, and I just give you the second answer a little bit. So this is my practice, where I really work with these organizations, where I try to translate the research into praxis and see what is working, what's not. I will come back to that. So I see you, Stu.
Thanks, Katarzyna. I wanted to start by saying that, yeah, I mean, you synthesized a huge amount of information into a short period of time there, and I thought you did it really well. There's a lot of really great ideas and resources and models and theories and some new ideas and angles, which I found really, really helpful. Obviously we're trying to cram a lot into a short time here, but I've seen a number of people try and do this, and I've not seen it done much better. So well done. I guess, yeah, Lisanne and I were just talking in our breakout around just the importance of these conversations becoming mainstream. I guess that's kind of what you were just talking about in terms of making it more accessible. So I'm involved with the Climate Coaching Alliance, as is as well. Eve is one of the founders, but I'm involved in the global coordination now. And this is where our membership's growing, and we're having conversations like this more and more. And also, in my work with clients, it's just, my mantra is every conversation, every relationship, this does have to be involved. It has to be included in the conversation, and it won't always be, received well. But you mentioned contracting, which is the most important thing of all in coaching. A lot of coaches think they can't bring it in because somehow you're not supposed to have a point of view, but that can be easily, kind of addressed by just simply just contracting at the outset. Is it, included in our conversations? We'll be exploring things like, macro sort of issues, including climate change. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. But I'd also say that at a moral level, people say, well, how can we bring coaching into a coaching conversation? How can we bring climate change into a coaching conversation? And my answer always is, how can we not? How can we not? How can you have any moral, or kind of ethical integrity if you don't? Those are just a few thoughts that would like to just throw in, and just also real warm and open invitation to anybody who wants to join the Climate Coaching Alliance. There's many. We've gone from 0 to nearly 4,000 members now. That's still only 1% of the coaching profession, but it's a start. We have over 30, nearly 35 communities now on geography and also on themes and subjects, and it's all free, and it's a very vibrant community. So please join.
Thank you so much. This is so valuable. And I think what is also important, we need each other. So it's my experience from the last 3 years. In those times in which it's so difficult, I feel like, even if I work with the government and they promise a lot, and then we have like, so sometimes was co-moderating the idea of how do we deal with nuclear waste in Germany. So you can imagine hundreds of people online, very emotional stuff, really a lot of conflicts. And you just observe the community is so important to be able to do it for a while. And Climate Coaching Alliance is like, mwah. So thank you so much for this. Marco.
Well, thank you very much. I was not so sure what climate coaching is. I'm still trying to figure out. But I started my career as climate scientist. I did my master's in UK, been to Antarctica, seen firsthand how 2 degrees warming seas looks like. I'm also a coach, but I'm in politics in parliament. EU is contributing only 8 or 9% of CO2 emissions comparing to China, India, and States 50%, but we need to show leadership. So I just joined, I applied for the Climate Alliance, and I thank everybody for that initiative. I think it's important to raise awareness and also try to influence all of our clients and people we deal with to be able to maintain challenges and the objectives we see. We have Fit for 55 policy in EU, which we want to cut our CO2 emissions up to 55% by 2030 and to be first carbon neutral continent by 2050. And with all the wars that we see, this climate agenda is not on top of agenda anymore. And everybody, and what we discussed in our break room, that we should be agents of change for everybody we work with to stay on top of climate agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marco. And this is so important on the one hand, and I'm really curious about how coaching could be helpful in your place of working as a politician. I can only assume that you are somewhere in an Eastern. May I ask you where you are? Where are you at home?
I'm from Croatia.
From Croatia. Dobry din.
Yeah.
So this will be the one question: what will support you? And then, you know, I'm hearing we need to influence, and this is something I think which is a topic. So how do we, because we influence, it's physics, right? We always influence. So how aware am I? It is helpful to be either like me being very quickly, right? I tend to work very quickly. So I know my tendency to bring the clients into a speed where I need to, you know, come back. So just being aware about that we are influencing, but being really mindful that it also needs to stay a place of clients. And this is the room. So it's about the earth where all of us are living, but we need really a kind of special, for the first time, I think, in our history, a special challenge, because if someone is smoking or addicted to something, we also react as clients, as coaches, but differently. But because it doesn't cause something to us, but it's different with air pollution. It's different with many stuff which we were talking about. So how do we deal with it without bringing too much of ourselves and like overlapping clients' ideas with ours? So I think this is a task for many of us to be clear about this one. And this is an ongoing process. Julie, do I speak it correctly, your name?
Yeah, it's Julie.
Thank you.
Yeah, just briefly, I would agree in terms of lots of fabulous sort of resources in this. I'm quite early on in the journey of it and just starting to explore some of the materials, and there was so much stuff in there. So thank you for that, that we can go away and read. In our group, we were sort of looking at what brings us all together really. And some of the things I picked up was the language that was being used, very positive language. I've got a question in terms of, you mentioned about a transparent service for organisations and companies. And then I think it was Stu that was saying that how can we not bring it into the conversation? for anybody that's doing this, because I'm not doing this at the moment, it's more about being curious. With the coaching offer, is it, are people offering it as a transparent service, that this is to talk about climate concerns that the client might have? Or is it a case of bringing it into the conversation where appropriate? And I suppose I'm just interested in terms of ethical, the ethical debate in that, and how people are tackling it, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. So before Eve and Mircea,
I think Eve could answer that question, Katarzyna. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. If I know she can. So maybe if you will start, and I will just add eventually my perspective. Eve?
I was going to say two things. Can I share something? Can I share something on my screen?
Nicola?
I think I can. So if I can get it to work. So it's just I did a presentation about some of these things. But basically, the professional bodies have already made statements about this. So I was trying to show you this slide. I don't know what happened. And I was then chair of one of the professional bodies, and we wrote a joint statement on climate change. And you can see in the Global Code of Ethics, this was written, the Global Code of Ethics, EMCC is a signature to, as are some of the other bodies like the Association of Coaching, Apex, and now Commensa, etc. You've already got within the codes of ethics permission, if you like. And I'm not sure everyone's aware of what's necessary in the Code of Ethics that picks this up, but also of this organisation, the JGSG, which is the Joint Global Statement Group. We've written a statement which is all about our role as professional bodies and as individuals in this area. And so the permission's already there, and I think people are waiting to be given it, and I think it's there. But I think the other question, and I mean, I can share this after, so I can put it in the chat box, but the other answering your question, Julie, is these are just some of the questions from the book, but some of the questions I've used over the years. I'm not someone who says to my client, what do you think about climate change? What are you going to do about it? But I also don't believe that it's their agenda, because I believe there's my agenda, there's your agenda, and in between us is the work we need to do. And that's influenced, because I'm a systemic worker, by all these things that are going on in the world, in our life. And so these are just some of the questions that I will use in a systemic way, which tends to bring these things out. So it's not about per se saying, let's think about climate coaching then. It's more about who and what does your work and life serve? When you think of future generations, what is it you want to leave behind for your organisation, for your family? But do you see what I mean? So it's, and then you're really expanding the thinking of people. So I don't want to take up too much time, but that would be my answer to your question, and I'll just stop sharing that.
Thank you so much. This is really important. So I would add probably the practical question which is following to this permission, because this is like the basis, and then what we are actually doing when we are working with clients. And what I mean by transparency, this is my offer. So I'm also providing workshops around climate communication, and where is a bit of expertise and a bit of coaching, and everything is like given. So I'm not like, offering something and doing something different. This is what I mean by transparency, but it's really clear. And then I have those clients where I wonder if I will work with them. So just to be honest with you, I have a client now from automobile where I was like for weeks asking myself, will I work with them? They asked me as a mediator and coach. And it was the board. And I was discussing with them for a long time and made the condition, if you will work with me, my condition is that we also take sustainability and climate into the room. And now, months later, I am really struggling because they are looking, how to avoid the topic. So it's not an easy one. It is a process. And I'm like, observing myself, I don't like to push them. They know about the topic and their urgency, but they have so many urgency because of the ecology I have mentioned, you know, the bigger picture, that I need to pause and find for myself, what attitude do I take? So I was wondering after the last session, maybe I organize the week, which I have different opinions about, with them, and invite all the boarders to see the week from Frédéric Laloux, where companies can also make a picture for themselves what is going on, right? So this is a process, and I think what you, Eve, are referring to is our attitude, how we ask the question, how we open the room, how we make, and this is why I recommend Sally Weintraub so much, to understand we all, or almost all of us, feel the pain or anger. So we need to make it speakable. We need the space for this. So how do I show up? What am I inviting to? What kind of instrument am I able to be for these clients? So this is then something different than an offer us, you know, this is climate coaching. Those are the steps we are going to take, if that makes sense for you. I'm sorry, where is the colleague? I will find you because the hand is again, Mirkea. It's probably wrong way to spell your name, but
it's very, very close. It's Mircea.
Mircea.
Yeah, we had this discussion or little very close, at least very close to in the breakout room, and my view is that we can bring in the climate and sustainability when discussing the ecology of the goals and how the goals of our clients relate to the bigger picture, and it's up to us how big we can make the picture. On the other hand, because I defined my niche as being a sustainability and climate coach, usually clients come to me because they want to work on these topics. And also what I'm doing, I'm trying to put things, to separate things, to have a bundle of training if clients need it. So when I wear my mentor and trainer hat and the expert hat, and I'm giving them all the information I have. And then within the coaching process, it's more focused on finding their own solutions rather than me directing the conversation to something, towards something.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I will put the link, Mari, in a second in a chat. Fabio?
Yeah, I was in the group with Mircea and JD, and what I was discussing with him, it was the main reflection that I had and share with them is that I cannot put on the table the climate change if a client come to me about a goal. But what I can do is when we discuss the contract, is something I can put, I would like to think you, okay, I would like to work with you, and if you can think about, as aligned with the code of ethics, blah, 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 about how you can give impact with your goal, thinking about the big picture about this. Yeah. Because it's not my niche, as Mircea said, this is my niche. So people come to me for this reason. But if they don't come to you for this reason, because in another niche, you're working team coach, you do something different, what is our mission? We can bring in, and they have possibility to talk about this. We cannot guide them on this area because maybe they have a completely different approach. They want to make money. They are no interest about the environment or the future. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if you put in the contract, maybe they can change from there to think about. That was my thoughts.
Thank you so much, Fabio. And I think before I share with you the last slides to just connect what you are taking with you, there will be a lot of discussion about, you know, the right and the fails. It's not, I don't think this is the way. we can move forward. It's much more important to allow ourselves to have this diversity in the space and to find our own integrity. So how am I able, as I have mentioned with the example, to work with someone this way? And they are not producing, they're just a kind of associations for drivers. So it's nothing like big. However, so it's also the idea, who am I working with? Am I supporting post-growth? Or what am I supporting? So this is a lot about us and about our identity. And I think it is for everyone to just check what is the best place for me to be before we go to clients, right? And having this Climate Coaching Alliance or other communities or our kids, you know, they are fantastic with the ideas how to do it, okay? But I think we can really use our qualities for having conversations and dialogues about that, rather thinking their path is the right one and their path is the wrong one. If that makes sense to you. It's just my humble opinion. So I would love to just ask you, and that you can maybe answer to yourself for the next time. Maybe I like the idea of 24 hours because this are the mini baby steps we can take. What would you like to achieve, to preserve and to change when it comes to the ecology of human beings in yourself? So Christmas is coming in some countries. What is it you could recognize when it comes to your well-being, to your contact with nature, however defined, to your good relationships? It's a lot about building relationships, and I'm so grateful for our dialogue about this topic now, and I feel like my body is also feeling it. So what relationships would be important to continue, but maybe also what could be different? And I will share with you the presentation, so I don't go through everything of what is written there. But sometimes simple models in this complex world help us to, you know, start. What is it you would like to start doing more often? What is it you would like to stop, to keep more and less, and just enjoy that journey? And please let me know whatever is happening. I'm glad to be and stay in the dialogue and give it back to Nicola.
No, I was going to say thank you so much for introducing us to this complex but intriguing and an amazing world that you've found that you've been researching in, and something which really sort of affects us so deeply on lots of different levels. I know that I know that the areas that you've been working on are incredibly complex, and summarizing them so in such a nice bite-sized way will be so amazing. It has been amazing. Thank you, and thank you for the offer to share your slides as well. I know that lots of us will be poring over them afterwards and picking out those bits that we wanted to go back to. But I wonder if I could have the last question, if that's okay. What are you yourself taking from this dialogue? What will you yourself do as a result of this hour and a half we've had together?
Yeah, I was thinking before I come here, I just skip any kind of presentation and open the dialogue. And for the text time, I just wonder if I just skip the presentation and open the dialogue. I make it so easy now, right? So there's always the question, what do I need to deliver so that we have a common, you know, place to have the dialogue? But I realized that maybe it is like still too much, right? So this is what I am taking with me. Yeah, and I feel really alive being in contact with you and knowing we are so many who take care in a different way. And this is my very, very deep it is assumption. I just believe in it, that everyone cares in different ways. And sometimes we just don't know that we care because we are busy with other stuff. Yes, and thank you, Nicola, for sharing the room and organizing all of this, and for all of you and your thoughts and time. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're super welcome, and absolutely thank you to everybody here who's engaged so amazingly.